All right, let's get those flutes ready because today we are diving deep into the world of Brazilian sparkling wine. Specifically, we're headed to Pinto Bandeira in Saragossa, a region some are calling the Brazilian Champagne.
Hmm.
You've given us a great stack of material here, some excerpts from a Portuguese book, looks like, and a bunch of articles. Our mission: to uncover what makes Pinto Bandeira stand out, how it compares to other sparkling wine regions around the world, and what makes its wines truly unique. Did you know they actually have their own denomination of origin? Or DO, just for sparkling wine?
It's true. The Dio Altos de Pinto Bandeira was established in 2022, and it's
Mhm.
the first DO in the New World, dedicated solely to sparkling wine production.
Wow, they really are serious about their bubbles. So, where do we even begin to unpack what makes this place so special?
Well, it all starts with a terroir. And in Pinto Bandeira, a big part of that is the altitude. We're talking vineyards nestled high in the Saragossa Mountains,
Mhm.
averaging about 700 meters above sea level.
High altitude vineyards. Does that actually affect the grapes? I mean, besides maybe giving them a fear of heights?
Well, the lack of oxygen at those heights probably doesn't bother them too much, but it does create a very unique environment for growing grapes. Think intense sunlight during the day, but then those mountain nights get seriously cold. Big temperature swings like that are key. You also have these incredible volcanic soils, rich in minerals. That add another layer of complexity. All of that combines to create grapes with a naturally vibrant acidity, balanced sugar levels, and truly complex aromas, perfect for crafting elegant sparkling wines.
Okay, so it's not just about sunshine, it's about intense sunshine, the kind you only get at high altitudes.
Like
But hold on. If we're talking volcanic soil, that means eruptions at some point,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
So
thing.
how did winemaking even get started in a place like that?
That's a great question. The story of Pinto Bandeira's winemaking actually goes back to the late 19th century. When Italian immigrants started settling in the area, they brought with them their deep knowledge of viticulture and a
Mm.
passion for making wine. Initially, they focused on producing table wines, the kind you'd enjoy with a meal.
But somewhere along the way, they switched to sparkling wine. Was it like a sudden aha moment,
Yeah.
or was it more of a gradual shift?
Well, the terroir was definitely whispering sparkling all along. It just took time for the winemakers to really hone their skills and fully understand the potential of the region.
Who were some of the early pioneers who really started pushing for sparkling wine production?
Unfortunately, the specific names of those early pioneers aren't widely documented, but what we do know is that over time, they started experimenting with different techniques, always striving for quality, and eventually, their efforts led to the recognition of Pinto Bandeira as a premier sparkling wine region. That dedication to quality is what ultimately paved the way for the establishment of the DO in 2022.
That DO status really solidifies their place on the world stage, doesn't it? And it ensures they're maintaining those high standards they work so hard to achieve. Speaking of standards, when we talk about Pinto Bandeira sparkling wine, which grapes are we primarily dealing with?
You'll primarily find Chardonnay and Pinot Noir dominating the scene.
No, wait a minute. Pinot Noir, isn't that a red grape? Are they making red sparkling wine?
Ah, good catch. While Pinot Noir is indeed a red grape, in this case, it's used to make the white or rosé base wines for the sparkling wine.
Okay, so we're not talking about a deep, dark, red bubbly, but what does Pinot Noir actually bring to the party, even if it's just in the base wine?
It adds a fascinating layer of complexity. You get those lovely red fruit notes, a subtle hint of spice, and a depth of flavor that you wouldn't get from Chardonnay alone. It's really quite remarkable how those characteristics shine through, even after the second fermentation.
So, let's talk bubbles. You mentioned earlier that they use the traditional method, which I know involves a second fermentation in the bottle. But for those of us who aren't winemaking experts, can you break that down a bit? What makes this method so special? And how does it create those fine, persistent bubbles that we associate with quality sparkling wines?
It's like baking a cake twice,
Uh,
but with way more science and a lot more waiting involved. You start with a still base wine made from those high-altitude Chardonnay and Pinot Noir grapes we talked about then. They add yeast and sugar to the bottle, seal it up tight, and let it undergo a second fermentation right there inside the bottle.
so the magic happens in the bottle itself. That's pretty cool.
It really is. That second fermentation is what creates the carbon dioxide.
Huh.
It gets trapped as those tiny, elegant bubbles. But it's not just about the bubbles. The traditional method also involves aging the wine on its lees, those dead yeast cells left over from fermentation.
Hold on. Aging on dead yeast, doesn't that sound
Yeah.
kind of gross?
It might sound strange, but trust me, this is where things get really interesting. Those lees actually impart incredible complexity and richness to the wine during the aging process. They contribute those yeasty, toasty, biscuity notes that people love in traditional method sparkling wines. Think brioche, freshly baked bread, sometimes even a hint of hazelnut.
Okay. I'm starting to understand why they call this the traditional method. It's a lot more involved than I realized. But how long are we talking about for this aging process? Weeks? Months? Years?
The DIA regulations for Altos de Pinto Bandeira sparkling wine require a minimum aging period of 9 months on the lees, but many producers choose to age their wines for much longer, sometimes even several years.
Wow, so we're talking about a serious commitment to quality here. They're not rushing the process at all. But I have to ask, does Pinto Bandera produce anything besides sparkling wine? It feels like we've been so focused on bubbles that I'm curious about what else they've got going on.
You're absolutely right. It's not all bubbles in Pinto Bandera. They've got a pretty diverse portfolio of grapes growing there. Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, even Riesling makes an appearance.
Wow, Riesling in Brazil. That's not something you hear every day, but okay. I'm curious. How does that same climate we were talking about, the high altitude, the intense sun, how does that impact those other grapes? Do they produce the same kind of wines we might expect from, say, a French Merlot or a German Riesling?
That's what makes exploring different wine regions so fascinating. You can take the same grape, plant it in 2 different places, and get 2 completely different wines in Pinto Bandera. That unique terroir adds its own twist to these classic varieties. The Merlot, for example, tends to be a bit lighter than its French counterparts, with vibrant red fruit flavors and a touch of herbal character. Cabernet Sauvignon, while still bold and structured, showcases a slightly softer side, with pronounced dark fruit notes and a spicy finish.
Okay, so it's like the terroir is putting its own signature on these wines. But let's be honest, when most people think of Pinto Bandera, they think sparkling. It's almost like it's woven into the very identity of the region.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the wine itself. It's about the culture, the people, the whole experience of being in Pinto Bandera. Sparkling wine is part of their everyday life.
Okay, paint me a picture. If I were to visit Pinto Bandera, what would I see? What would I experience?
Imagine rolling hills covered in vineyards, charming little towns with cobblestone streets, and family-run wineries that have been passed down through generations. The air is crisp and clean, the scenery is breathtaking, and everywhere you go, there's a sense of warmth and hospitality.
It sounds idyllic. But what about the food? I know we talked about Italian influences earlier. How does the cuisine in Pinto Bandera complement the wines?
Ooh, the food is a highlight in itself. It's this beautiful fusion of Italian heritage and local Brazilian ingredients. You'll find those classic Italian comfort foods we all love, handmade pastas, creamy risottos, hearty polenta dishes, but prepared with a Brazilian flair, using fresh, local ingredients.
Give me some specific examples. What are some must-try dishes in Pinto Bandera?
Well, for starters, you can't go wrong with a traditional churrasco. It's a Brazilian barbecue feast with all sorts of grilled meats, sausages, and vegetables. It's a perfect pairing for a structured red wine, perhaps one of those Pinto Bandeira Cabernet Sauvignons we were talking about.
Okay, now you're making me hungry. But what about something a little later? What would pair well with, say, a crisp, sparkling rosé?
Ah, for that, I would recommend a creamy risotto with local mushrooms and herbs. The delicate fruitiness and acidity of the rosé would cut through the richness of the risotto, creating a harmonious balance of flavors.
And what about those local cheeses you mentioned earlier?
Oh, the cheeses. They have a fantastic variety of artisanal cheeses in Pinto Bandera, from soft, creamy varieties to aged, hard cheeses, and they're all just begging to be paired with different sparkling wine styles.
It sounds like a cheese lover's paradise. I'm starting to get a real sense of how integral food and wine are to the whole Pinto Bandera experience.
They are, and it's something they're very conscious of preserving. They understand that their culinary traditions are just as important as their winemaking heritage.
Speaking of traditions, you mentioned earlier that they have a festival dedicated to sparkling wine.
They do. It's called the Festa do Espumante, and it's a huge celebration of all things bubbly. Winemakers, producers, and enthusiasts from all over come together to sample the latest vintages, share their knowledge, and just enjoy the festive atmosphere. There's music, dancing, food, of course, and plenty of opportunities to raise a glass or two of Pinto Bandera's finest.
That sounds incredible. They really go all out, so.
We've talked about the terroir, the history, the culture, the food. What do you think is the one thing that truly sets Pinto Bandera apart in the world of wine?
It's hard to pinpoint just one thing, but I'd say it's their unique blend of dedication and innovation. They're deeply rooted in tradition, honoring those time-honored winemaking practices brought over by their Italian ancestors. But they're also not afraid to embrace new ideas and technology. They're constantly pushing the boundaries, exploring new techniques, and striving for excellence in everything they do.
It's that constant evolution that's so impressive. They're not content to just rest on their laurels.
Exactly. And it's not just about the pursuit of quality. They're also deeply committed to sustainability.
Yeah.
Many producers are embracing organic and biodynamic practices, focusing on water conservation and exploring renewable energy sources.
It's not just about making great wine. It's about making great wine in a way that respects the environment and ensures a future for generations to come. Precisely. They understand that they have a responsibility to protect the land that gives them so much.
That's a powerful message, and it really adds another layer of depth to the whole Pinto Bandeira story. It's not just about delicious wine, it's about a commitment to quality, to sustainability, to preserving a way of life.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it. And it's something that resonates with a lot of people these days. Consumers are becoming increasingly aware of the impact their choices have. And they're looking for products that align with their values.
And it seems like Pinto Bandeira is ticking all the boxes.
They really are. They're producing world-class wines, they're doing it in a way that's environmentally responsible, and they're preserving a rich cultural heritage. It's a winning combination.
Okay, so let's say someone has never tried a Pinto Bandeira sparkling wine before. What would you tell them? Why should they seek it out? What makes it special?
Well, first of all, I tell them to get ready for a delightful surprise. These wines are incredibly approachable, food-friendly, and offer a fantastic introduction to the world of quality sparkling wine without breaking the bank.
That's always good to hear. But beyond the affordability factor, what else makes them stand out?
They possess a unique character, a sense of place that you can taste in every sip.
Yeah.
It's the combination of those high-altitude grapes, the volcanic soils, the traditional methods, and the passion of the winemakers. It all comes together to create something truly special.
So it's more than just a drink, it's an experience.
Exactly. It's a taste of Pinto Bandeira, bottled up and ready to be enjoyed.
I like that. Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground here, but is there anything we've missed? Any other fascinating tidbits about Pinto Bandeira that you think our listeners should know?
Well, it's not just about the big-name producers. There are also a lot of small, family-run wineries in Pinto Bandeira, each with their own unique story to tell and their own approach to winemaking.
So there's a lot of diversity within the region. What would you recommend for someone who's looking to explore those smaller producers?
The best advice I can give is to be adventurous. Don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone and try something new. Talk to the locals. Ask for recommendations. And be open to discovering hidden gems. You never know what treasures you might uncover.
That's great advice. And it speaks to the spirit of Pinto Bandeira, a region that's constantly evolving, experimenting, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so exciting to follow their journey. They're not just making wine, they're shaping the future of winemaking in Brazil.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Pinto Bandeira, is there a final thought-provoking question we can leave our listener with? Something to ponder over their next glass of bubbly?
That's a fantastic question, and it's something that a lot of people in the wine industry are thinking about. Pinto Bandeira is really at the forefront of sustainable winemaking, not just in Brazil, but globally. They're experimenting with new techniques, adapting to changing conditions, and proving that you can produce exceptional wines while also being environmentally responsible. So, could they become a model for others? Absolutely. In fact, they're already inspiring winemakers in other regions to rethink their practices and adopt more sustainable approaches.
It's amazing to think that this relatively small region in Brazil could have such a big impact on the global wine industry.
It really is, and it's a testament to their dedication, their innovation, and their unwavering belief in the power of sustainability.
Well, I think it's safe to say that we've uncovered a lot more than just delicious sparkling wine in this deep dive. We've explored a region that's rich in history, culture, and a commitment to quality that extends far beyond the bottle.
I couldn't agree more. It's been a fascinating journey, and I hope our listeners come away with a newfound appreciation for the wines, the people, and the story of Pinto Bandeira.
I hope so too. And maybe even a little inspiration to seek out a bottle of Pinto Bandeira bubbly and experience it all firsthand.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to Pinto Bandeira, to sustainable winemaking, and to the joy of discovery. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this deep dive, so feel free to reach out and share your questions, comments, or even your favorite Pinto Bandeira pairings. Until next time, happy sipping.
I have one. Given their commitment to sustainability and how they seem to be tackling the challenges of climate change head-on, could Pinto Bandera become a model for other wine regions around the world?
Hmm, that's interesting. What do you think?
I mean, it's something that a lot of people in the wine industry are thinking about. Pinto Bandera is really at the forefront of sustainable winemaking, not just in Brazil, but globally.
Yeah.
They're experimenting with new techniques, adapting to changing conditions, and really proving that you can produce exceptional wines while also being environmentally responsible.
Right.
So, could they become a model for others? Absolutely, I think. In fact, there are already inspiring winemakers in other regions to rethink their practices and adopt more sustainable approaches.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that this relatively small region in Brazil could have such a big impact on the global wine industry.
It really is. And
Right.
it's a testament to their dedication, their innovation,
Yeah,
and their unwavering belief in the power of
for
sustainability.
sure. Well, I think it's safe to say that we've uncovered a lot more than just delicious sparkling wine. In this deep dive, we've explored a region that's rich in history and culture, and a commitment to quality that extends far beyond the bottle.
I couldn't agree more. It's been a fascinating journey, and I hope our listeners come away with a newfound appreciation for the wines, the people, and the story of Pinto Bandera.
I hope so too. And maybe even a little inspiration to seek out a bottle of Pinto Bandera bubbly and experience it all firsthand.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to Pinto Bandera, to sustainable winemaking, and to the joy of discovery. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this deep dive into Pinto Bandera, so feel free to reach out and share your questions and comments, or even your favorite Pinto Bandera pairings. Until next time, happy sipping.